welcome Gert, Executive Editor, Spend Matters.
Good morning to you. I like to be here, and even after yesterday, I'm quite fresh on the stage. I've seen some people who weren't. I'm going to lead you in within half an hour through a very simple part of the supply chain. I've heard all the difficult stories till now, but we're going to talk about sourcing and procurement. It is by far the easiest bit of it, so I'll try to help you in 25 minutes through sourcing and procurement and innovation. I'm working part-time for Spend Matters. Spend Matters is a blogging website, and we have websites in the UK, the US, and the Netherlands. And I guess it's only of interest for the people from the Netherlands because I'm writing in Dutch. So you will have to use Google Translate, and I know that's not too good. So sorry for that, but you can read, of course, the other ones. Talking about sourcing and procurement, taken by a mean, I think more than 60% of your costs are outside your own organization. Well, that's relaxed. If you think about it, it's perfect that you have a procurement department. On the other hand, if 60% is outside of your own organization, it's quite a risk to have a procurement organization managing the majority of your costs. And I've seen some companies where I think it is a risk. You can choose a supplier, of course. You can choose your own supplier as a procurement department, as a user, as a stakeholder. But why? Why did you choose this supplier? Is it lowest cost? Probably it is, because last year, outside of Germany, the economy wasn't too good. So lowest cost was the main theme, I think, for most of the companies. It can be, of course, best quality, logistic performance, past overall performance. That's a thing in public procurement which is very difficult because you can't take past overall performance into account. Expected innovation, come back to that later. Or is it just good relationship, gut feeling, your boss telling you what supplier to take because he's playing excellent golf? I've had a career in sourcing and procurement a long time ago, and I think procurement has evolved a little bit and is much more professional than in my days. But I've been overruled quite some times by management who said, good journey you made on sourcing and procurement, but we're going to take that supplier. That's gone, I guess. But it's also good to think about what your plans are with your supplier. Do you want your supplier to help you in the coming years? I'll come back to that. Yeah. It's good to think about the fact that you're not only in trouble having difficulties, but your suppliers also have. One of the things, commodities went down, and are you pressing on your suppliers to give you better prices because of the commodities? And did they talk to their suppliers already? So they're having struggles with their suppliers as well. Another thing is the use of technology, of course. If you look at the speed technology is urging at all companies. We use Moore's law more than once. The speed of computers, the CPU time of computers doubles every 2 years. And it's a given, especially for kids, as I just heard, because they're using computers. But suppliers might have problems with technology. And some suppliers are even better than you with technology and outsmarting you there. With Elemika, we talked about data, but if you see the amount of data produced now, it's enormous. The data produced from the prehistory until 2003 is exactly the same as we produce now in 10 minutes. Do you have old suppliers? They have no clue. But I think it's very important to understand that the issues you're dealing with, and especially when you're at a huge company, are multiple the size with your suppliers when they're small, because you have large IT departments, professional people. A lot of your suppliers won't. So they're dealing with the same problems as you have, but in a different way. And that's very important to understand, even if you want to do not only cost out, but also bring value in your supply chain. You have to think about the fact that suppliers are maybe not on the same professional level as you are, as a company. It says nothing about innovation, but it says a lot about the way you work with them. There's more than just selecting a supplier. It's also about risk management and opportunities, getting opportunities into your company out of that 60% that is already in your supply chain. I took some pictures from the internet, so it's not only Dr. Google, but also I am Googling a lot. What's happening in the world of the suppliers? Your world probably as well, but it's scary to see what happened in the last few years. Do you remember this one? It's Kiev, 2014. In a few days' time, half the world changed there. And 2 years before that one, we did two things. We had in the same country Euro 2012, playing football there. No one expected something to come. And the person on the right was chosen as Man of the Year in 2012. That's the world we live in, but suppliers live in as well. And if you have suppliers in the Krim, you might know what's happening there. I know from Nestlé, for instance, they have factories there and they have some serious problems. They changed from a little bit Western thoughts to Russian thoughts, Russian factory. Another one. This is not a big supplier probably for the most of you, but this happened in Syria, 2012, same time when we had the football games. It's unbelievable what can happen in a few years of time, but even in a few days. And that's what you have to encounter when you talk about risk management with your suppliers. I can take 20, 40, 60 pictures of things happened in Japan, Brazil, and wherever that influences the supply chain, but also the choice of your suppliers. A positive one. May I ask, this is Shanghai. How many years there are between the picture above and below? Make a guess. 5 years. Now they're fast. This is 50 years. 50 years time, a whole country changed. And of course, I know a lot of these buildings are empty because the Chinese are just building, making the buildings, making everything clean, making the environment beautiful. But anyway, there is a progress in 50 years' time. And what we now see is that China might fall back. What will happen then? And a lot of companies in Europe are relying at this moment on Chinese suppliers, because we wanted to bring our supply chain to low-cost countries. But there might be some risk as well. The whole thing happening with commodities at this moment is mainly, as partly, a result of the fact that China is not growing as fast as it did in the past. Not 7.5% each year. Okay. We're going to move from cost out. So we're taking the risk into account, we're choosing our suppliers in a way that we have the best suppliers and reliable suppliers, and we think we know what will happen in the supply chain, where the factories are and what will happen there. If you change from cost out, lowering the cost at your supplier, I hate it, to value creation, then you have to get innovation back into your company. And innovation has a variety in manifestations. It's products, that's the most logic one, having the best products, the smartest products, 3D printing. That was one of the things that struck me, printing your own pills at home. I'm Dutch, so we're quite good at that, I think, or some people in the Netherlands are. But also processes, services, sustainability. A lot of the value your suppliers can bring is coming through innovation. And you have to really understand what innovation is for you, for your clients, and for your suppliers. One of the things I've learned, being the last 10 years also a consultant, is that innovation is nice, but it's not a lottery in the first place, and innovation should only bring value to your customers. Innovation is nice to yourself, to your own company, but innovation should be also there for your clients. Who knows this one from 1983? No one? Yeah, a few, sure. This is sourcing and procurement. It's quite simple. It's 2 by 2. And it basically plots your suppliers or your products. You can do it either way. You look at the left one at the amount of money spent at a supplier. We call it financial impact, financial risk, several things to do. And on the downside there is supply risk. And it basically means how many suppliers are there to serve you. On the left-hand side, there are a lot of suppliers, so the risk is low. And on the right-hand side, it's high, there's only one supplier here. And then you can plot your suppliers and you think, okay, we have leverage suppliers on the left, so we can bang them on the head and ask for money. Because if they won't give it, we'll have another supplier. On the left one down, routine, which basically means you don't care because there's not much money, there are loads of suppliers, so you can change easily. The bottleneck is a little bit more difficult because you have few suppliers, not much value, but it's machine parts, these kind of things that really influence your business if you don't handle that right. And on the right corner, both there are the strategic suppliers. These are the suppliers where you normally get your innovation from. The large suppliers with a unique product, unique service. So there you start with your partnerships and work together with your suppliers to improve your supply chain, to work together, have long-lasting relationship, work on quality, logistics, innovation, probably costs as well. But when we say these are the strategic suppliers, we also say there are no suppliers with innovation in the other parts. And I don't think that's true. There can be a lot of small suppliers on the right-hand side and left-hand side below. Why not? And what we see as well is that you can make a supplier more strategic by working together with him and trying to get innovation out of these suppliers. I'm trying to go to the next sheet, and it works. When you want to work together with the supplier to get innovation out of your supply chain, there's one thing you have to do. You have to be the preferred customer. That's a difficult thing. There's a triangle from a marketing perspective where you look at your clients. In the top, the A clients are the most important clients for a supplier, and below the C clients are the ones you want to serve, but you don't mind if someone's leaving. When we go back and you have a strategic supplier, and he thinks of you, it's a C client, I don't mind, then you're never going to have a partnership which brings you innovation, value to your company. Doesn't work. The same happens, by the way, if you have a routine supplier, and I worked 10 years ago at Unilever, so every supplier thought we were the biggest client, so that's very nice, and the people from Bayer, BASF will encounter the same, I guess. So every supplier thought, oh, we have to have a partnership and be strategic. Well, people were in the routine segment for us. So you have to have a matching relationship if you want to get innovation out of your supply chain. So if you want to be a preferred customer of that strategic supplier, it has to do with the size of your company and the size of your supplier. It has to match, of course. innovation, and I'll come back to that later, but also in the relationship. Do you really invest in a relationship? Or are you just putting your procurement people at the front of your company, banging the supplier on the head and asking for lower costs? Or are you really trying to get innovation out of your suppliers? That's very important, because you really have to understand what's happening at a supplier before you can start going into a relationship. Reliability is an easy one. Suppliers has to be reliable. But you as a client has to be reliable as well. If you screw it up, you won't ever get a good relationship with your supplier. And then coming back to the other segments, so the smaller suppliers, how do you get innovation from startups, from small suppliers? It's very difficult to see where these suppliers are in your supply chain. Are they in the first tier, your direct suppliers? Are they in the second tier, suppliers to your suppliers? Or are they only supplying your competition, for instance? And there comes category management in. A lot of, I think all of you, have category management implemented in your company. You have perfect categories for your sourcing and procurement. But it only works when you work together in a multidisciplinary team. So it's not just having procurement doing a category and looking outside and talking to suppliers because they understand IT, HR, or whatever category it is. So you have to have multidisciplinary teams to really understand what's happening in each category, what suppliers there are, what opportunities there are. Market knowledge is the most important thing to get innovation. And what I see a lot is that procurement departments are having suppliers and telling them suppliers, okay, we want to have innovation from you. And you invite them to a meeting and they're coming with ideas, but missing the knowledge about the supply base. And that's one of the most important things. If you really understand your supply base, then you can ask the right suppliers for the right initiatives and helping them work together to serve you better. Always difficult, but that's one of the most important things. And all these suppliers can be everywhere in your supply chain, but also in these 4 quartiles of the matrix. So even in leverage, you can have suppliers that are outstanding and differentiate from the others and bring you innovation as well. Finding them is one. That's difficult and that's really hard work and that's not a lottery and it's not, oh, I just found one supplier that can do this and this. No, it's really going to the suppliers, talking to the suppliers, knowing your supply base, knowing the supply base of your competition as well. But the next step is how to get this innovation out of your suppliers. That's like digging gold. You have a big sieve and you hope to get something out. Of course, be a preferred customer. That's the first thing. Always try to give your supplier these things that are important for you. No, not important for you, for them, and maybe important for you. And be a reliable partner. Coming from a procurement background, I've seen different things, but the most important is you have to do what you say and act the way is expected by your suppliers. Sharing information. Probably sharing IP, roadmaps, technology roadmaps. What's going to happen the next years? What are you doing? And then the hard work continues. You have to evaluate the relationships. Both sides. We don't like it as procurement, but we have to. You have to take every aspect of the relationship and talk with your supplier. How is he acting? How are you acting? And you can also bring in, of course, expectations. Do you expect more from the supplier? And if you know the technology roadmap or the roadmap of the company, you can also decide that there will be moments to say goodbye to your supplier. But also there you have to be fair. Be reliable, be transparent. You have to evaluate relationships on soft and hard performance indicators. And you can make an extensive list, and there are several lists, especially in the high-tech sector, on measuring your suppliers. And that's very, very helpful, because then you see how much innovation comes out of the relationship. If you don't measure, you don't know. And you have to structure the relationships, not only in the planning process, so plan, do, check, act as a circle as in the process, but also in the relationships. Procurement is talking to sales. Management is talking to management. But it's a pyramid, and that's the way you can get innovation out of your suppliers. And this one is the last one. I found it on the internet. You have to read it first. If you want to build a lasting relationship, it's much more about we than me. Took some time for some people, I saw. But it's very important that you really understand that if you want to have innovation out of your supplier, you have to take a different approach than the standard approach and talking, I am your customer and you are my supplier. Thank you very much.